E-government websites have existed for quite some time now. However, they are all too often limited to being information websites with very restrictive options to interacting with government online. Typically, the person fills out a form, prints it, and sends it by post or in person to a government office. Taking e-government to the next level means making it citizen-centric. It is therefore critical that citizens, public servants, and enterprises be securely identified. With a secure and legally compliant electronic identity, a whole new dimension of online government services opens up. Let's take the case of John, who is dreaming of his new home. He has bought a nice piece of land and already has a pretty good idea of what his house will look like. He is planning on building his house quickly. He wants to move in just before winter. It is so real in his mind that he can almost touch it. But then, shouldn't he be thinking about the overall process he needs to battle through in order to have all the requested building authorizations? Spending his time filling in all sorts of forms and questionnaires, running from one administration to another to collect each and every document that will be requested. For sure, his house building plans are going to end up like this within a few weeks. Or, perhaps, like this. You may ask yourself why John is still smiling, knowing what's coming up ahead. Well, this is because John is not just any citizen. He is among the first to experiment the benefits of a new relationship between the authority and the citizen. Thanks to WiseKey's unique approach to identity, the local authority is able to manage the complex issue of identity in an easy and seamless manner, enabling the transactional capabilities of the new Citizen Services platform. WiseKey can integrate existing and new identity systems to manage the complexity of which identity is accepted and what it can be used for, all in full compliance with local, national, and regional laws. John opens his browser and logs on to the site with his national identity card. WiseKey's semantic validation system determines the validity of the identity used to log into the Citizen Services platform. The system knows John recently bought land and displays this among his most recent interactions with local government. Now, WiseKey's Identity Suite allows him to start the building permit process. Making use of the tools and the help features of the system, John rapidly fills in the necessary forms online, adds the requested details, and applies for a building permit. John's building permit application is digitally signed and prepared for submission to the relevant authorities by WiseKey's timestamping and semantic validation system, which verifies that the digital signature is valid and then digitally timestamps the request as evidence of the date and time at which the procedure was started. This also serves for long-term electronic data retention purposes. John's request is immediately transmitted to the relevant authorities through secure encrypted data transfer. And John can now pay online the relevant application fees or request to be billed at home. Let's have a look at what happens next. Emmy is the civil servant of the city in charge of processing building permits. When arriving at work in the morning, Emmy does not find a stack of documents and forms waiting on her desk. Instead, she logs on to the Citizen Services platform with her electronic identity. WiseKey's identity semantics and semantic validation system detect that Emmy is a civil servant and automatically customizes her access rights to the functions she is authorized to perform on the system. Emmy now has access to her personalized administration portal, where she can find all of the necessary information to complete her tasks at her level of authority. She can see that John has sent a request for a building permit and reviews the digitally signed and timestamped documents and information. Emmy validates the request and organizes the next steps for the procedure. The sharing of calendars and the implementation of the notification system allows her to set up meetings and exchange information with other city departments. At each step of the process, the legally required administrative steps are digitally signed by the relevant civil servants and timestamped for future reference and long-term storage. Now let's look at Tim. Tim also works for the city. He's an expert working for the Sanitary and Security Department. Tim's job is to make sure that the blueprints and the project as a whole comply with the building ordinances and other applicable laws. Tim also has his electronic credentials that allows him to access the Citizen Services platform, which automatically opens the cases he is in charge of. He can also see that Emmy has requested a meeting with John's architect. With the sharing of calendars, Emmy has already set up a tentative date and time for the meeting. In preparation for the meeting, Tim can review all of the documents, upload media and information, and immediately notify the applicant of any additional information he may need. Tim also validates the meeting, and Emmy is immediately notified for the follow-up procedure. At any time, John simply logs on to his Citizen account and can follow the procedure step by step. Tim's review of the process is duly archived by the system and filed with a timestamp as legally compliant notification of the meeting and other steps in the process. Following the meeting, Tim confirms that all of the technical requirements are met. The building permit request is published for the community to exercise their rights to oppose the project. During the legally required publication period for any oppositions, John can see how much time is left for each phase of the procedure. With the strong authentication technologies enabled by WISeKey's Identity Semantics Suite, any oppositions as well as formal administrative decisions, including appeals, are done through the Citizen Services portal. Luckily for John, it turns out that no oppositions are raised. All procedural documents have been time-stamped, validated, and certified, and will now be stored for long-term archiving by the system in compliance with the law. The authority can now deliver the requested permit, and on this beautiful day of May, the contractor can now start building John's house. John and other persons with the authority to do so can now follow the administrative life cycle of his new house. In the future, should John decide to sell his house, the authority to access certain restricted records through the Citizen Services platform could be transferred to the new owner. A few weeks later, he can see that the inspection of the site was a simple formality. For sure, he'll be moving in before Christmas. And there it is. John is really happy with his new house and his new life as a digital citizen. He feels that in this town, the administration really cares about him. Thanks to WISeKey's secure digital technologies, life has become a lot easier for John, Emmy, Tim, and everyone in the city. They can all interact online in a secure, efficient, and legally compliant manner. At WISeKey, we use digital identity technologies to solve real-world problems.